How a casual family dinner unraveled our entire marriage. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. The room went silent when my husband toasted to my blind trust. Crystal chimed like thin ice around the dining table, and everyone watched me laugh like it was a joke. I work IT support for a public school district, which is a fancy way to say I carry ladders, label routers, and explain two-factor authentication to people who still write passwords on sticky notes. Stability matters to me. Predictable hours, insurance that actually insures, a small emergency fund I refuse to touch. Jordan thrives on theater. The linen napkins, the curated playlist, the candied pecans on the salad. His set, his script, his spotlight. I was used to playing the quiet supporting role, but that night the spotlight swung and burned. "Don't look so serious, Eric," he grinned, topping my glass. "My guy loves a plan more than a pulse." Everyone laughed, including his mother, Diane, who sometimes mouths "I'm sorry" when Jordan is performing. The toast kept going, little stabs hidden in compliments. I cataloged each one like corrupted files. Trust, obedient, keeps me grounded. It wasn't our language. It sounded like someone describing a teenager, not a spouse. When the server cleared plates, Jordan's phone buzzed face down 3 times. He ignored it, then checked it during Diane's story about a neighbor's cat. He smiled at something, the way he smiles when a gamble pays off. The old fear stirred. How much of this life is curated for guests, and how much belongs to me? I thought about my classroom tickets for next week's security audit, the sticky keyboard I promised to fix for Mrs. Patel, the patience I ration for kids who call me Mr. Fix-It. I've built my small life on honest checklists. I kept building while he told the table we were stronger than ever after a bumpy patch. We hadn't had a bumpy patch, unless there was a version of our marriage I didn't know. I raised my glass anyway, and Diane's eyes flicked to mine like a lifeline thrown too late. Only Diane noticed my hand shaking as Jordan reached for more wine. We met at a coworker's birthday, a bar with sticky floors and a photo booth that printed "everything too warm," so strangers looked like old friends. Jordan said he loved how calm I was, how I could listen without getting bored. I mistook his attention for humility. Back then he rented a studio above a bakery and smelled like almonds and ambition. I had a roommate, a secondhand couch, and a habit of cleaning cables like prayer beads. We slid into something that looked like balance. He dazzled, I grounded, and we both believed that meant safety. Hairline cracks started in choices too small to protest. He borrowed my card for points and paid it off late. He logged into my calendar so we don't double book and started accepting invitations for us without asking. He teased me for bringing Tupperware to parties, then asked if I could start meal prepping because meetings run long. The latest wound came last Thursday when he told our friends I wasn't built for risk and pressed a surprised kiss to my forehead like a clerk validating a parking ticket. I laughed, then went home and itemized our subscriptions until midnight like it could cure the sting. There were sweet parts, of course, and that's what made it confusing. He left notes on the coffee maker before presentations. He rubbed my shoulder while I patched our Wi-Fi during a storm and said, "Magic hands." He learned my sister's cat's name and brought the good wine to my parents' barbecue. The good moments were real. They just became receipts used later to purchase silence. Each time I swallowed a comment, the balance shifted a bit more in his favor. Diane once told me, washing dishes side by side, that Jordan used to be gentler before he learned that charm moves money. "He gets scared and performs," she whispered, drying a plate. "When he performs, he forgets the person next to him." I tucked it away as motherly nostalgia. Lately, it feels like a diagnosis I was trying not to read. At dinner, his toast felt familiar in the worst way. One more performance where I was a prop. The heat under my collar wasn't just anger. It was a thermostat clicking from discomfort to warning. If I was the steady one, what exactly was I steadying? I wondered who exactly had been shaking lately, him or me. The first red flag didn't wave, it whispered. A calendar alert pinged on our shared iPad. Flight check-in, San Francisco Airport, 9:10 p.m. I was at work, swapping a switch in the middle school lab, when the notification ghosted across the screen like it belonged to me. Jordan had told me he'd be at a client dinner, local, late. I dismissed it as a syncing glitch, maybe an ad, maybe old travel. But the alert sat in my chest all afternoon, humming like a stuck fan. That week I noticed a second oddity. Jordan started forwarding bank emails to an account I didn't recognize, a harmless-looking string ending with consulting. When I asked, he said, "Relax, babe. It's for a side project, nothing scary," and kissed my forehead again like he could print a no-questions sticker on me. The third thing was small, stupid, a text from an unknown number, bubble green, that popped up while he set the table. "Got the keys. See you after 10. He flipped the phone over like a magician closing a trapdoor. At school, during dismissal, I found myself diagnosing everything like equipment. If a projector flickered, there was dust on the lens. If the content of my marriage flickered, what was the dust? I made lists in my head: flights, consulting, keys. I told myself grown marriages include secrets that aren't sins, surprise gifts, private work, silly roleplay I was too square to get. I told myself that if I could trace every cable in a server closet, I could also choose not to look behind a locked cabinet at home. Then, at dinner, his toast landed wrong, and the whisper turned into a question with teeth. He bragged that we never fight about money because we share a vision, while a notification face down pulsed light across the linen like a heartbeat I couldn't unsee. Our friends watched us like a commercial. Diane's eyes moved between us, measuring the inches. I could pretend, or I could look. Pretending felt like deleting a log and hoping the system stayed clean. Looking meant risking everything I had organized so carefully. The lease in both names, the shared accounts, the version of us that let me sleep. I refilled my water, said nothing, and quietly enabled my own two-factor on the shared accounts. Something in his smile told me the real show would start after dessert. We were scraping creme brulee when his cousin, tipsy and affectionate, said, "Jordan, tell them about the Napa place." The table buzzed. "The Napa place?" Jordan froze a fraction, then laughed too smoothly. "Oh, that thing," he said, "just a client's guest house I crash at sometimes." He hadn't crashed anywhere but our bed for weeks that I knew. Diane blinked in the slow way she does when she is indexing inconsistencies. "Babe," Jordan said lightly, "remember? That weekend you were at your audit?" He served it like a shared memory, and I tasted nothing but metal. I had spent that weekend teaching Mr. Alvarez how to reset his VoIP phone. We ate vending machine pretzels, and I went home with a headache and pride because the upgrade worked. There was no Napa in my calendar or my life. His cousin doubled down, oblivious. "The one with the olive trees," she said, "and the pool lights that change colors." Diane's fork paused midair. Jordan flashed teeth. "Clients," he repeated, like the word could rewrite evidence already printed somewhere I hadn't seen. I looked at my hands to keep from looking at him. After, in the hallway by the restrooms, I said, "Show me the reservation." He dropped the smile like a prop and said, "Not tonight, Eric. Don't embarrass me." It landed like an order. "You lied," I said, and he rolled his eyes, more bored than defensive. "You make everything small and difficult." The drive home was a road made of radio commercials and my pulse in my ears. He talked about optics. I thought about locks. At the apartment, he declared, "You're paranoid," and showered with the door locked. I stared at the foggy glass compartmentalizing our lives, and something cold in me clicked into place. Verify, then decide. I opened the junk drawer that is not junk when you care about wires and found the old iPad still signed into the shared iCloud. On the nightstand, a key fob I didn't recognize blinked red with a dying battery. I photographed it from 3 angles and mailed the photos to myself. The file names looked like little flags. I closed my fist around it and decided to find the door it loved. I slept on the couch with the fob under my palm like a stone. At sunrise, I texted Priya, "I need you to talk me out of being crazy." She called immediately. "I'm not your conscience," she said. "I'm your co-pilot. What's the plan?" I told her about Napa, the flight alert, the consulting emails. "Receipts," she said. "You don't confront, you collect." She sent a checklist. Call the bank, check the credit reports, photograph the fob, log every date, speak to Diane only in questions. Diane texted at 8:12 a.m. "Are you okay?" I typed "fine" and deleted it. I typed, "I think Jordan lied about Napa," and deleted that too. Finally, "Did Jordan stay with you that weekend I had the audit?" 3 dots. "No," she wrote. "He said he was with you." I felt my stomach slide, then settle, like an elevator stopping between floors. At the bank, I asked to review our joint account activity. The teller's fluorescent smile softened when I slid our IDs across the counter. I noted 2 transfers labeled consulting, retainer, $1,200 on May 12th and $2,480 on June 3rd, both to a name I didn't recognize. The amounts weren't enormous, but they weren't small for us either. There was also a recurring charge, 2nd Street Storage, Unit B, $14.89 monthly. The fob in my pocket warmed like a thought. I asked the teller to print statements. She lowered her voice and said, "You didn't hear this from me, but lots of side hustles live at storage units." At lunch, I checked my credit report. A pre-approved line of credit inquiry under Jordan's email, pending. My heart pounded stupidly at my desk while a 7th grader asked if he could change the login name on his Chromebook to Sir Fartsalot. I fixed the name, then took a picture of the fob against my work badge for scale. Priya replied to the photo with one word, door. That night, I told Jordan I'd tutor late and drove to 2nd Street, a sad row of corrugated doors glowing under bad security lights. I entered B, 14, and smelled cedar and cologne. The lock beeped green, and the door rolled up on a life I didn't recognize. The storage unit looked less like a stash and more like a showroom of substitutions. A narrow garment rack of suits in Jordan's size, but not brands I'd seen on our card. An espresso machine he swore we couldn't afford at home. A box labeled Docs, holding manila folders, and another labeled Games, hiding a velvet pouch of casino chips from places we hadn't visited. I took photos like I was documenting a crime scene I had wandered into by mistake. On the back shelf, wrapped in tissue, was a framed photo of Jordan and me at our courthouse wedding. The frame was new. The glass was spotless. He had hidden the most public version of us where only he could visit it. Priya said in my ear, speakerphone hissing, "Don't touch too much. Look for names." I slid papers without rearranging. Bank statements from an account I didn't recognize, balances yo-yoing, Venmo screenshots to a Consult Pro LLC, a printout of a lease for an apartment on Oak and 9th, Unit 3C, with the tenant listed as Jordan Ellis. My vision tunneled. The lease start date, 3 months ago. Rent, $2,150, due on the 1st. Security deposit, paid by cashier's check. Under the lease, a key envelope with a twin to the fob pressed to my palm. I photographed the lease, the envelope, the dates. I felt my life split into versions, the one I lived and the one recorded in ink without my name. I snapped picture after picture and watched the battery fall like a countdown. "Eric," Priya said, "quiet now. Get out and lock it. He'll know if something's moved." I did. Outside, the night melted into freeway noise and the metallic taste of new facts. On the drive home, Diane called without prelude. "I heard there was tension after dinner," she said. "Everything okay?" I almost told her everything. Instead, I asked, "Do you know anything about an apartment near Oak and 9th? Silence, like someone lifted the needle off the record mid-song. "No," she said carefully. "Why would I?" I watched brake lights smear and thought, he hadn't borrowed space, he'd borrowed a life. In the morning, I told Jordan I had a network outage across 2 schools, then took the bus to Oak and 9th. The building was one of those renovated old specials, exposed brick, Edison bulbs in the lobby, a ficus dying dramatically in a gold planter. Unit 3C sat behind a keypad lock. The fob kissed the reader and the door clicked, a private sound I hated immediately. Inside, the air held a staged smell, citrus cleaner and something floral. A couch I had never sat on, a throw blanket we would never fight over, a coffee table with a book open to a page about mindset and momentum. In the bedroom, a second set of Jordan's shirts. On the dresser, a spare watch. On the nightstand, a photo of Jordan and a woman I didn't know, her hair in a loose bun, both of them in sunglasses, both of them laughing at something just out of frame. The rational mind likes handles, names, addresses, timestamps. I searched until I found the mail pile by the door. A glossy postcard, grand opening, Napa Terrace Villas. Another, 2nd Street Storage. Thanks for choosing us. The lease copy mentioned a parking space. In the kitchen drawer, under corkscrews, a business card. Consult Pro LLC, Strategic Brand Acceleration, J. Ellis, Partner. The email ended with the same consulting address I had seen forwarding our bank messages. I snapped photos and texted Priya only, found 3C. There's a photo. She replied, grab serial numbers. Leave. Reset your passwords. Breathe. I stood in the doorway of a life built like a diagram and threaded with omissions. The bathroom had my preferred shampoo brand bought on sale, but unopened, and the wrong razor blades. A cheaper, harsher cologne, Jordan's old one, sat next to a candle that didn't fit his taste. A script assembled from past selves and rented props. I checked the fridge. 2 craft beers, small yogurts, a takeout container dated 2 nights ago, labeled L. I pocketed nothing. I adjusted nothing. I let the air settle back around my shape as if I'd never been there. I closed the fridge softly and realized I'd become the ghost in my own marriage. The mini twist arrived not as drama, but as a spreadsheet. On the old iPad, synced to his cloud, I found a notes folder titled Consult Pro. Inside were screenshots of a gambling app, balances swinging between 3 figures and 5, timestamps labeled with airports. There were also transfers to a digital wallet, then to Consult Pro LLC, cycling like a siphon. One sheet listed investor outreach, and under it, Diane's name, then crossed out, my name, never entered. Another showed promises, bridge loan secured, and client convinced, both highlighted green. The amounts pinballed, $7,800, $5,250, $12,400, with notes like repay after launch, and beside them, due dates that had sailed by like buoys behind a sinking boat. Then the Oak and Ninth lease entries connected to the app usage dates. On nights Jordan stayed with clients, the app showed late-night deposits, early morning withdrawals, and a half-dozen failed verifications. When he traveled for work, his location history pinned the apartment and the storage unit like a crime court board. 3C wasn't romance housing. It was a staging area for risk. The photo with the woman? I found her first name on a DoorDash receipt. Lena. No, not my sister Lena. A stranger's nickname scribbled by a driver. The expense category read, Team Morale. My credit report pinged again. The pre-approved line of credit moved to application received. If he tied my name to his roulette of loans and favors, my careful little life would drown in interest and apologies. The risks weren't theoretical, they had invoices. I copied what I could to a new, private folder labeled receipts_Eric, then to a flash drive in my pocket. Priya texted, do you want proof or peace? You can't have both today. I replied, I want witnesses. She said, then move. I zoomed into the nightstand photo, then froze. There was a second phone camera in the reflection, and it wasn't mine. I made a plan the way I troubleshoot. Isolate variables, document, test. First, secure my accounts and freeze my credit. I called the bureaus from a classroom closet between periods, whispering while a projector warmed up outside. Then I opened a new checking account in my own name, shifted my direct deposit, and moved the emergency fund. Second, make copies, printed statements, timestamp screenshots, and a one-page summary even a tired mediator could understand. Dates, amounts, locations. Third, pick the venue. I scheduled a notary appointment that doubled as a safeguard. If tempers flared later, the documents would already exist stamped and initialed. The moral part sat heavier. Priya nudged on text. If he's sick, addiction's sick. What's the line between help and enabling? I wrote 2 columns on paper. Save marriage privately versus protect myself publicly. Under save privately, I listed therapy, monitoring, conditional budgets. Under protect publicly, I listed separate finances, legal counsel, controlled disclosure, safety. I kept seeing the crossed-out Diane on his investor list and wanted to vomit. He had considered asking his mother for money. He had considered using me as a bridge. I breathed through a wave of grief for the version of us that existed only in group photos. I called Diane and said, I need you at a notary tomorrow. Please trust me. She asked nothing, only said, text me the address. Then I called Attorney Ramos's office and asked if he could review documents for a potential separation scenario. Bring everything and don't delete anything, his assistant said. I packed a folder labeled facts_not_feelings and slid it into my backpack like contraband hope. I looked at our hands and thought about the stamp that would change everything tomorrow. The close call arrived with appetizers and an audience. Diane invited us back for a calmer dinner, which meant the same table, softer lighting, fewer cousins. Jordan poured wine and performed regret. I teased too hard the other night, he said, meeting Diane's eyes like a penitent son. Eric deserves better. He brought up therapy before I could, named a reputable clinic, and promised transparency with finances going forward. My anger, always practical, lifted its head and asked if peace could be signed like a service ticket. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced. His face didn't change, but his knuckles whitened against the stem. I excused myself to the bathroom and saw the alert on his lock screen reflected in the mirror. Consult Pro. Payment declined. When I returned, he suggested a weekend trip. Just us, reconnecting. Diane caught my gaze, a tiny crease of worry in her forehead, and said, maybe start with one honest week. The food cooled. He tried to take my hand under the table. I didn't move it, but I didn't thread our fingers either. In the kitchen, Diane handed me Tupperware and said quietly, if you need me to witness something, I'm available. She doesn't lecture. She sets a place for truth like another dessert. Jordan, sensing a shift, slid in behind us and wrapped his arms around my shoulders. We're fine, he murmured into my hair. Tell Mom we're fine. The tone wasn't love, it was stage direction. I almost nodded. It would have been easy to delay, to trade the heavy bag of evidence for a lighter lie. Then his phone buzzed again. 2 messages stacked. Unit 3C rent overdue, and storage autopay failed. He smiled too brightly, voice a shade too loud. I said, we have a notary appointment tomorrow, and I want you there. Jordan tried to reframe the meeting as a romantic breakfast. I said, it's at 10 a.m., bring your ID. He arrived late, agitated but polished, a look he wears like armor. Diane took the chair beside me, not across, which changed the geometry of the room in my favor. The notary's office smelled like paper and lemons. I slid the folder across the table and said, I need these witnessed and copied. The notary did her job, stamp, initial, date. Each thud of the seal like a heartbeat you could hear. Is this really necessary? Jordan asked, smiling for the wrong audience. Eric, you're making drama out of misunderstandings. I said nothing and opened my summary. May 12th, $1,200. Consulting retainer, June 3rd, $2,480. Consulting retainer, recurring $89. 2nd Street Storage, Oak and 9th Lease, Unit 3C. I included photos of the garment rack, the espresso machine, the nightstand picture, a careful square of our wedding photo inside a place I'd never been invited. Those are business expenses, he said, and the apartment is for client privacy. Diane's voice was calm and terrible. Why isn't my name on your investor list anymore? He flinched. The notary kept stamping. I pressed play on a short recording. Jordan's voicemail to a contact labeled Lena, promising a weekend after the transfer clears. He lunged for the phone. The notary raised a hand like a crossing guard and said, Sir. I set down one last item. A printout of the gambling app screenshots with dates matching his business trips. Jordan stopped performing and started bargaining. We can fix this, he whispered. Just don't make it public. I said, then meet me at the bank in an hour with full access. The bank's conference room was glass-walled and fluorescent, the kind of honest light people hate. A manager named Kelsey joined us, glasses low, patience high. You requested a review of linked accounts? She asked. Yes, I said, sliding over the notary-copied documents. Jordan straightened his tie, wearing sincerity like a rented suit. Kelsey opened the portal and walked us through. Checking, savings, credit cards, and 2 accounts I'd never seen. Those are business, Jordan said quickly. Not marital. Kelsey nodded blandly. They're linked by email and device to your joint profiles. I asked for read-only statements. She printed them, line after line. Transfers to Consult Pro, cash advances, fees cascading like falling dominoes. There's also a pending application for a joint line of credit, Kelsey added. Do you both authorize? My pulse went hot. I do not, I said. Jordan smiled at her, then at me, then at a camera I hoped existed. It must have defaulted to joint, he said. I signed a freeze. Kelsey notarized it on the spot. Diane exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since the toast. I turned to Jordan. Cancel the Oak and 9th Lease, I said. Close the storage unit. Refund anything taken from our joint account. Put commitments in writing. He scoffed, then winced as Kelsey asked. Would you like me to print the device logins for all transactions? We watched the timestamps grow incontestable bones. Then motive spilled out. Investors needed proof of momentum, he said, cornered. I fronted appearances. It's temporary. Diane's eyes closed. You risked his credit for appearances. His mask slipped, voice rising. He doesn't understand scale. He's small. Kelsey slid a pen to me and said, we can also separate the accounts today, if you'd like. Fallout is never cinematic. It's paperwork and echoes. We separated the accounts. New debit card, new passwords, a credit freeze that felt like cold air hitting a bruise. Ramos reviewed the folder and drew lines on a yellow pad. Temporary separation agreement, financial disclosures, cease unauthorized credit applications, inventory personal property. He explained it like traffic directions. Merge here, exit there, expect delays. My job absorbed my shaking hands with tasks I could win. Fix a printer jam, unstick a Chromebook hinge, return a found charger to a relieved 7th grader. Jordan cycled through love bombing and rage. You're destroying us, he texted. Then, therapy Monday, I promise. Then, you'll regret humiliating me. Priya made me eat and sent me to a therapist who asked questions I didn't know I'd needed. When did you stop narrating your preferences out loud? Diane texted at odd hours. Proud of you for choosing sunlight. The family split along uncomfortable lines. Cousins rooting for reconciliation, an uncle posting vague quotes about loyalty, a sister-in-law forwarding a lawyer's contact with a heart. Money bled. First month's rent on a new room when I needed distance. Retainer for Ramos. Session fees. The price of peace tallied like a receipt I hadn't budgeted for. Still, quiet entered the apartment where noise used to live. I slept. I cooked simple. I labeled a drawer mine. A silly, holy thing. Jordan emailed a proposal. I handle household bills while he restructures. Ramos circled it in red. This is enabling dressed as strategy. On Friday, a certified letter arrived. Notice of delinquent storage fees and a scheduled lien sale date for Unit B. 14 if unpaid by the 15th. I set the envelope down and realized the unit's secrets might go public without me. Healing looked like logistics. I filed a police report to document the unauthorized credit application and attach copies of Kelsey's device logs. I froze my credit with every bureau and placed fraud alerts. I changed the lease on our apartment to my name only, contingent on proof of Jordan's separate residence. The landlord, who loved completed maintenance requests, nodded through paperwork with surprising mercy. I drew boundaries in bullet points. No shared accounts, no new debts. Therapy if contact continues, everything in writing. I learned to like my own paperwork. I met Jordan in a courthouse hallway for an initial conference, fluorescent light and shoe squeaks. Our voices kept low. He wore his softer cologne, the one that used to make me lean closer. He said, I'm getting help. I said, I'm glad, and handed him a written plan. Pay storage, close it, terminate the Oak and 9th lease, sign a statement acknowledging no joint credit applications. He signed the storage part, hesitated at the lease, and balked at the acknowledgement. Admitting that ruins me, he whispered. Ruining me is not my goal, I said. Protecting me is. Diane and I had coffee after. She didn't cry. She said, when he performs, he forgets the person next to him. And then, thank you for reminding me to stop clapping. I went home and cleaned cables like prayer beads, then called the storage company and paid the balance to stop the lien sale, on the condition Jordan meet me there to close it. He replied with a single word, tomorrow. I set 2 alarms and taped my boundaries to the fridge like a map through fog. We closed the unit together under the gray brightness of a too early morning. He looked smaller in daylight, or maybe I was finally seeing scale correctly. We boxed the suits for donation, sold the espresso machine to a neighbor, and I took our wedding photo home, not as sentiment, but as evidence that love had once existed alongside omission. At the apartment, movers carried out a couch that had memorized 1,000 quiet fights. I handed Jordan a copy of the separation agreement Ramos drafted, with a list of next steps clipped to it like homework. He didn't argue. He just nodded, and for once, didn't perform. Therapy gave me language, coercive budgeting, intermittent reinforcement, image management. Work gave me progress bars that finished and tickets that closed. Priya gave me soup and a laugh I could borrow when mine broke. Diane gave me a key I didn't need, a symbol of shelter more than a door. I gave myself routines: stretch, breathe, grocery list, savings transfer, a walk that ends at the library. Tiny wins turned into a floor beneath my feet. Here's what I learned. Love without boundaries is a fog machine. It makes everything look softer while you bump into edges hard enough to bruise. Money is a story you tell yourself with receipts. Tell it out loud, early, and keep copies. If you're reading this in the half-sick glow after a dinner that didn't feel harmless, start a folder named facts_not_feelings and put dates inside it like lifelines. Call a friend who says receipts. Ask one steady person to witness you. Write down what kindness costs you. Choose peace that can be notarized. I locked my door that night and finally heard my own breathing again.